Welcome to the channel, Chinese English Express. Today, I am going to come up with a new and exciting content. Before going to the video, please subscribe to my channel. Title of the story: The Good Wife. Once upon a time, there was a wise and good king. He had only one son, a boy named Delibes. Prince Delibes was a clever young man and the king loved him very much. One day, the king called the prince to him and said, "Listen, my son. You will be king after I have died. I want you to be a wise ruler. But you will only be wise if you are happy. And you will only be happy if you marry a good and clever woman. So I want you to travel around my kingdom. Look for the best woman you can find and marry her. Then I am sure you will become a good ruler of our kingdom." So Delibes left his father's house, and he began to travel around the kingdom. He went to every town and every village. He met the daughters of rich men and the daughters of poor men, the daughters of nomads and the daughters of hunters. Some of them were beautiful, but they were stupid. Some were wise, but they were ugly. He couldn't find the perfect girl. He spent many years traveling. He didn't look like a prince anymore. His clothes were old and torn, his shoes were broken. One day, the tired prince lay down to rest under a tree. It was the middle of the day, and the sun was high in the sky. His food was finished and he was very hungry. He fell asleep. When he woke up, he saw a girl. She was looking after her father's sheep. Delibes looked at her. She was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. He wanted to speak to her, but he couldn't. "What's the matter?" the girl said. "You look hungry. I have only a little bread with me here, and you can have it if you like." She took out some bread and gave it to Delibes. He ate it hungrily. "Thank you," he said. The girl started to walk away. Delibes wanted her to stay. "Have you seen my camel?" he said. "No," the girl said. "I haven't seen a camel, but a blind one has passed this way." "Really?" said the prince. "And this camel had no tail." "How do you know?" asked the prince. "And there is a wound on its right side," the girl said. The prince was very surprised. "You haven't seen this camel," he said, "but you have described it perfectly. How did you do it?" "Oh, it was easy," the girl said. "Look at this bush. A camel has been eating the leaves. But it has only eaten from one side of it. This probably means that it's blind in one eye. And do you see this camel dung? It's all together, in one pile. But camels move their tails when they drop their dung. When a camel has a tail, the dung falls in different places." "But what about the wound on the camel's right side?" asked Delibes. "How did you know about that?" "Look here, in the sand," said the girl. "A camel has been rolling here. But it has only rolled on its left side. This means that its right side must be wounded." "I've found the girl I'm looking for at last," the prince said to himself. Please, he said to the girl, tell me your name. My name is Hariri, she said. And what is your father's name? Nakrusa. Where does your family live? Where can I find them? Down there, said Hariri, and she pointed to the village in the distance. I'll come back very soon, the prince said, and speak to your family, but first I must go home. I must tell my father. I've found the girl I want to marry. Ibis hurried back to his father's house. Father, he said, I've found her. She's the wisest and most beautiful girl in your kingdom. His father smiled. That's good, my son. But don't be in a hurry. Find out more about the girl. Meet her family. Talk to them. So Ibis began the journey back to Hariri's village. On the way, he met Nakrusa, Hariri's father. Let's walk together, he said to the old man. Very well, Nakrusa said. It was a long way to the village. The path was rough and stony and the sun was hot. Nakrusa and Ibis walked together, but they didn't speak. At last, Ibis said, the journey is too long and we are both tired. Let's make it easier. Why don't you carry me? Or, if you like, I will carry you. Then the time will pass more quickly. Nakrusa looked at Ibis, but he didn't say anything. What a crazy idea, he thought. What a stupid young man. They walked on, but they still didn't speak. After a while, they passed some young men. They were looking after a herd of 100 cows. Old man, said the prince. Who do these cows belong to? They belong to my cousin, said Nakrusa. He's a very rich man. Rich? The prince laughed. No. He must be poor. I'm sure he's a poor man. I'm sorry for him. Nakrusa shook his head. What a strange young man, he thought. He's sorry for a man who has 100 cows. A little later, they passed another herd of cattle. There were 10 cows and 1 bull. Whose cattle are these? Ibis asked. Oh, they belong to my neighbor, said Nakrusa. He's only a poor man. Poor, said the prince. I don't think so. I think he's rich. Yes, he's certainly a rich man. This young man is crazy, Nakrusa thought. They walked on, over the hills, until they came to a valley. There was a field of wheat in the valley. It was already yellow and ready for the harvest. Is this wheat free, so that travelers can eat it? Asked Ibis. Free, said Nakrusa. What do you mean, free? Of course it isn't free. It belongs to the farmer. I don't understand this boy at all, he said to himself. The sun was going down now. It was nearly evening. At last they could see the village in the distance. Some people were coming out of the village. They were carrying the body of a dead man. They were taking him to the cemetery. Who has died? Ibis asked Nacrusa. Who was this man? He was a good old man, Nacrusa answered. I knew him well. And will his name be buried with him? Asked Ibis. Or will his name live on? How stupid! Nacrusa thought. The poor man is dead. Of course his name dies with him. It won't be used again. He said nothing. He walked on towards his house and Ibis followed him. The prince and Nacrusa came to Nacrusa's hut. The old man turned round to Ibis. He wanted to say goodbye. But the prince had already followed him into his compound. Nacrusa was tired of Ibis. He wanted him to go away. But now the young man was his guest. He had to welcome him. So he went into his hut and brought out a mat. He put it on the ground and Ibis sat down on it. Hariri was inside the hut. She was cooking the evening meal. Listen, daughter, Nacrusa said to her. We have a very strange guest. A crazy young man has followed me all day. He's come to the village with me and now he's here in my compound. Take him some water so that he can wash his feet. So Hariri took some water and went out to wash Ibis's feet. He was very happy when he saw her. She smiled at him, and his heart jumped. She was even more beautiful than before. Why don't you put your feet on the mat? She asked him. Look. They are on the dirty ground. But my feet are still dirty, Ibis answered. You haven't washed them yet. If I put them on the mat now, the mat will get dirty too. So Hariri washed his feet. When they were clean, he put them on the mat. Hariri went back into the hut to find her father. This young man isn't crazy at all, she said. Oh yes, he is, said Nacrusa. Do you know what he said to me on the road? Let's make the journey easier, he said. Why don't you carry me? Or, if you like, I'll carry you. Wasn't that stupid? How can I, an old man, carry a big young man like him? But father, Hariri said. You don't understand. He meant that the journey was long and boring. He wanted to make it interesting. When he said, why don't you carry me, he meant, why don't you tell me a story? And when he said, or if you like, I'll carry you, he meant, or, if you like, I'll tell you a story. In that way, you could help each other along the road. Well, anyway, said Nacrusa. That wasn't the only thing. We passed a big herd of 100 cows. Who do these cows belong to? He asked me. He must be a poor man. Poor? A man with 100 cows is rich. Then later, we passed a small herd of 10 cows and 1 bull. Who do these belong to? He said. Oh, he must be a rich man. Now, isn't that crazy? No, father, Hariri said. He's right. The man with 100 cows is rich now, but he won't be rich for long. If he doesn't have a bull, his cows will never give birth to calves. After a while they will all die and he'll be poor again. But the man who has a bull as well as 10 cows will soon be rich. His cows will all have calves. He'll have more and more cattle every year. You haven't heard it all, Nacrusa said. We passed a field of wheat. Is this wheat free, so that travelers can eat it? This stupid boy asked me. Free? I said. Of course it isn't free. It belongs to the farmer. Only he can eat it. But father, said Hariri. Who is the farmer? Is he a generous man? Does he give food to the guests and travelers who come to his hut? Yes, said Nacrusa. I know the man. He's a good man. He's always kind to guests and travelers. And does he ask them to pay for their food? Asked Hariri. Of course he doesn't. Nacrusa answered. What kind of man asks his guests to pay for their food? Then the young man was right, Hariri said. The wheat is free. Travelers can eat it without paying. Well, perhaps, Nacrusa said. But listen to this. While we were coming into the village, we passed a funeral. A crowd of people were taking a dead man to the cemetery. And do you know what this poor fool said? Will his name be buried with him, or will it be used again? Oh, said Hariri, that's easy to understand. He was asking you if the man had a son. The father's name lives on in his son. It's not buried with him. It's used again and again. Nacrusa was tired of talking to his daughter. He went to talk to her uncles. My daughter's crazy, he said. You have seen that strange young man sitting outside my hut. He asks all kinds of stupid questions. But my daughter likes him. Does she? Said Hariri's uncles. That's good. Your daughter isn't a child now. She must get married soon. Why don't you let her marry him? He looks like a good man to us. Oh, very well, said Nacrusa. But it's all so strange. I can't understand it at all. They're both crazy. Hariri heard her uncles and her father. She was very happy. He's so handsome, she said to herself, and so clever. He's the best young man I've ever seen. Delibes was still sitting outside the hut on the mat. He heard Hariri's words. He was very, very happy. Thanks for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe to my channel.